have Janice O'Brien, the Vice President Pro Tem. Put it on, Bob. Okay. Well, today we're very fortunate to have our speaker here. We have Bill Hogan, who is the owner of the Brockton Downtown Museum. Bill is a historian of Brockton. He's going to tell us all, well, maybe not all of them.
We don't have that much time.
But you all know that Brockton actually was North Bridgewater, and that's why we invited him here today to talk about North Bridgewater. So I hope you enjoy the program. I see we have one more.
Mr. Quimby.
All right.
We don't time.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Vic.
You're welcome.
Nice to have you in Bridgewater Historical Society. I am not a polished speaker. I've spoken in front of a lot of people over years and did a terrible job, but it doesn't stop me from doing it again. So, and this is a great turnout. I didn't realize I owed that much money to this many people. So, the downtown Brockton, I'll tell you a little bit about the downtown Brockton Museum. I owned a hobby shop downtown maybe about 6-7 years ago. And more of the talk in the hobby shop was about the history of Brockton than it was about anybody buying a train. So I got rid of I didn't get rid of the hobby shop. I went in the back room and I turned the front room into a museum. This photo actually is from the museum. It's quite old. Everything that's in that photo was actually here. And so I've always been interested in Brockton history. I grew up next to the Walkover Shoe Complex when it was the King Size Company. So I was very familiar with the rail yard and playing around in the what I called pink water and yellow water. And my father's 6'2", my mother's 6'1", so I don't know if the water had anything to do with it. But, yeah, I just made that up. They're actually shorter than me. So that got me interested. But as anybody that's growing up, when you're young, you're not all that interested in history. You're going to school and work and things like that. And but I retained things over the years. And as I got older and people were talking about history, I just got carried away. And my mother had actually kept a lot of things. I wouldn't have been interested in it. So I ended up with quite a collection of, not museum pieces, artifacts more or less. Nothing was, you know, there wasn't anything signed by General Eisenhower or Abe Lincoln or anything like that. But I had quite a collection. So when the hobby shop went south, they said, okay, we're opening up a museum. And that's what we did. And I say we because I have a few people here from my museum right here, Skip and Nancy and Robert Clemens and Mr. Quimby. So we got going on it, and what really got me going was I realized that 2021 would be the 200th anniversary of North Bridgewater. So I needed an excuse for a party, so that was it. And I had read the book. I invited the world, and I started out on a whole year-long celebration, beginning in December 31st of 2020, with a first night Brockton at City Hall, and I called it the William L. Douglas Governor's Ball. I started on this in 2019, so I had a 2-year start, and then I had the end of it being the George Keith walkover ball. That would have been on December 31st of 2021. And I call that the Bookends of Brockton, which is a reference to a lot of historical events in Brockton over the years. Douglas's factory was in the north in Montello. George Keith's was in the south side, Campello. And one was almost in Avon and the other one was almost in West Bridgewater. And everything else was in between. So people used to call that the Bookends of Brockton. And you'll find that referenced in a lot of things because the city of Brockton actually developed north-south. So right in that corridor we had Bookends of Brockton. So long story short was I put a schedule together for the whole year of 2021. You wouldn't believe what was on there. I mean, there wasn't a day. My mother's birthday was on there. There was a celebration for everything. And Easter Sunday, Thanksgiving, I had reunions going. I had this, that, and the other thing. And then the pandemic hit. So I never got anywhere. The city was receptive to a lot of these things, but we couldn't meet in person and we couldn't do the events. So I've got 2 years of bicentennial all built up inside of me, and I already had a coffee. So I'm all wound up. we did a slideshow. I did a slideshow. It may not even be in order of what we're going to talk about. It is what it is. Some of the artifacts here came from different centennial celebrations. This is 1981, which was the centennial of the city of Brockton. So fortunately, Brockton changed its name a whole bunch of times. So every 20 years there's a centennial, I call it. There's a celebration coming up. So I didn't do my 2021, but in 2024 is the 150th anniversary of the town of Brockton. That was in 1874. So I'm on my way again. I'm taking everything that I did and I'm changing the dates to 2024. I'm already done. So anyway, we're just gonna, these are some of the things that went on in 1921. This is the centennial of the town of North Bridgewater. And I actually have the book here that this came out of. It's over here if you'd like to look through it a little later. And as you can see, they only did like a 6-7 day event. That's not good enough for me. I turned it into a whole year. So this is Main Street. This is James Edgar department store on the left-hand side, right here. This is looking north, I would say from probably East Elm Street area, somewhere in that area. Joe Angelo's Cafe is on the right, so Crescent Street. And as you can see, they went all out with this. They've got the, they were very patriotic back there. The day of the events, they would all have the American flags. It was very colorful. And so that's the beginning of it. You can go to the next one now. This is Mrs. Groover. She wrote the book. She's the author of the Centennial book. And I have one here if you want to look through it. It's over this way. I didn't do the whole book. The whole book's quite thick, so we'll get through it. And go ahead, next one. This is some of the advertisements, again, June 12th. The upper photo is basically the same angle of, the sketch rather, is the same angle of that, that photo we just saw. That's about East Elm Street looking north. Okay, next one. And just another advertisement. The churches were very active in the, basically it was revolved around the churches. I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, next one. And this is Warren Landers. And I want to recreate this for 2024. What he did is he organized the committee, and then he wrote a letter to the mayor, which I think was Gleason, requesting that the city get behind his plans to have a centennial celebration. So what I want to do is, whoever the mayor happens to be, and hopefully I can get a pastor or a reverend from Brockton to recreate that letter and send it to Mayor Sullivan or whoever happens to be mayor. I think the election's in 2023, so we'll see. Next photo. And yeah, William Gleason was the mayor. I guessed right. So what we'll do in the program, we'll have the pastor, the reverend, and whoever happens to be the mayor. And I'll need help putting the program together. Keep that in mind. And the next photo is actually Roger Keith, who happened to be the sitting mayor during the centennial. Yep. Next photo. This is cool. This is what they got for their events. So this is what they call the carnival, street carnival. It was on June 19th, and I remember that because we have a lot of the celebrations. June 10th. It's coming up. What do they call that? Help me out there. Juneteenth, yes. So it's an easy date to remember. And what they did is they closed down Main Street from approximately Court Street to Crescent Street. And people just did what they wanted, like the businesses. James Edgar had a band. He wasn't alive, but he died in 1909. But the James Edgar department store, they had a little balcony out front, so they had a band up there playing. So everybody, whatever the businesses wanted to do, that's what they did. And all these people showed up. And it only lasted for like 3 or 4 hours. I don't know if they had traffic jams back then, but they They must have had a problem getting out of there. So that's what that is. Does everybody recognize this area, or do you need a little reference?
Is that looking south?
Yeah, this is looking south from Legion Parkway.
The building on the left, the big building, is that the one that burned? And
Yes.
they rebuilt it?
Yep, that's the Bixby building, the original. Yeah. And Strand was there, the Strand Theater. This, let's see, what the heck is here now? The Shawmut Bank ended up right over here. Most people remember the Shawmut Bank. Those buildings on the right are still there, all four of them. Well, yeah. Next photo. Okay, this. Wow. Yeah, this may or may not be the Centennial. This is a fire muster. And they paraded downtown, either going to the circus grounds or the fairgrounds or even Highland Park in Avon. Now they're heading south. So they're coming towards, this is probably, that's the Enterprise building, so that's Center Street on the right-hand side. And where they're going, I don't know. and it may not even be part of the Centennial celebration, but this is a postcard, and that's a fire muster. It took us years to figure out what the heck that was. I should have brought a pointer, because this gentleman on the right-hand side looks a lot like President Roosevelt, right on the right. So on Facebook, if you're on Facebook, a post can take on a life of its own, and that post has been going on for like 2 or 3 years now, and some people are swearing it's, President Roosevelt. That's okay. But that's what it is. I found the postcard. That's the only reason. I'm not that smart to figure that out. I just found the postcard, and I said, oh, that's what it is. Okay, next photo. This is the Bryant Homestead on Belmont Street. Cullen Bryant was a famous poet, and he lived there for a time. His family lived there, obviously. That home's still there. I'm not going to give the exact address because the family probably doesn't want people to go and buy it, but it's still in place. And so again, looking forward to 2024, we can recreate that with today's poets, artists. See, we're just trying to recreate whatever happened, and we can mention Mr. Bryant and everything. Next photo. So what they did in 1921, they recreated it. That's Cullen Bryant, I guess. And that's the fairgrounds, which is ironic because there is no Brockton Fair anymore. Yeah. And so the next few photos will just show you some of the events. But they had a very sense of community back then. People got involved with these things. They asked for volunteers, and they got too many volunteers. And so it was very interesting. That's the Cullen Bryant group on the top, and this is how they went to church. Now remember, their history is going from 1821 to 1921. Next photo. The old stagecoach. That's how they got around. I'll mention it now. Pearl Street, North Pearl, all the way to Turnpike Street in Easton, I believe it is. That was originally planned to be the Taunton Turnpike. And they expected the city to develop around the turnpike at the time. And once the railroad came in 1846, that took care of that, and the town revolved around the railroad, of course. But I'll get into that a little bit later if we have time. But it'd be nice to get a stagecoach, and again, we'll recreate a stagecoach with a bat bus.
A toll road.
A toll, was it?
It went from South Boston to Taunton.
Oh, okay.
And,
Yeah. Even back then.
Yeah.
But it was a temporary toll, so we don't have to.
But it was built by a private company.
Private company, okay. Yeah. Next photo. And this is Miss Jones' school. Miss Jones was the original teacher in Brockton. And way back, they didn't have public schools. They just had people that would teach all ages. You could be 6 years old and 17 sitting there. Chances of 17 being in school at the time, almost nil. You were in the factories or you were working. But I thought I'd add her.
Was she the dunce in the end?
I don't know which one she is. And, again, that's the fairgrounds. And next photo. This is Reverend John Porter. His grave is actually, I don't know how he got all the way down there, but he's at the, he's in the cemetery at the end of Grove Street in Maine. And Mr. Porter, Reverend Porter, lived on the north side, and the Porter Street Church is named after him. He was the first Reverend in Brockton. So, hey, I'm trying to think of that cemetery. Stephen, do you remember the name of that cemetery?
Old burial ground.
The old, yeah, old burial grounds. If you're coming out of Grove Street in Brockton, you're on Main, directly, First Parish. So, well, that makes sense that he'd be buried there. Yeah. So again, maybe we'll visit that. We'll visit that cemetery on that day. Next photo. I don't know if I should pull that off. Nature spirits. So I was thinking of all the marijuana dispensaries. I drink coffee, so I don't have to do it. But anyway, nature. I haven't figured out what that is, but there they are. Next photo. And this, of course, in 1921, there were still Civil War veterans alive, and we had the guard post 13. The building itself was diagonally across from City Hall, where East Elm Street, and at the time, let's see, Lincoln Street area. What else was down that way? The City Hall itself, it was originally designed to be a, along with City Hall, a Civil War museum. So if you walk in there, you'll see a lot of Civil War murals and artifacts. It's the main floors became a quite a veterans area with the memorials from all the wars. It's way too many. But anyway, the veterans are still around in 1921. That's the fairgrounds again. I don't know if there's anybody famous in there. Okay, next photo. And this is the end of it. This is Mrs. Roger Keith. And so, you know, the mayor's wife was involved, everybody was involved, the governor came to all these events, as many as they could. If you remember at the time they used to have Governor's Day. You wouldn't remember it in 1909, but you've heard of it. That was at the fairgrounds every year. The fairgrounds was in October at the time. Okay, next photo. Okay, a few other things happened during that time. Eldon B. Keith Field was dedicated. George Keith's son, Eldon B. Keith, died in 1920 or 1919, I believe, and of the pandemic of the time at the time. So it must have been 1918. So George Keith donated what at the time was all wetlands, Howard's Pond they called it, and he donated the land to the city and built Eldon B. Keith Field. And it's still there to the day. I think the next photo shows what it looks like today. I hope. Yeah, there it is. And that's Dr. Arnone's school. Some of us remember that, Dr. Arnone, I believe. Yeah, William R. Arnone. And it hasn't changed from that view very much. I don't know what the plans are. So it's still there. Unfortunately, as you can see, the plaque's missing. Pretty sure that one's in place. So George Keith, at the time, I think he was just heartbroken when his son died. So that was and Eldon B. Keith was on the school committee. So that field is under the jurisdiction of the school department, and it has to be used for recreation for ever and ever and ever and ever. Next photo. Here's a photo, probably when they finished it up. Yes, yeah. Next photo, see what we get. And just an area view of the time. You can see the field up in the left-hand corner. And James Edgar, as you can see, there wasn't much room for parking at the time. Anything? Next photo. And now we'll get to a little bit of the history. Sachem Rock, am I saying that? That's in East Bridgewater, I believe.
Yes.
So this whole area at the top until that time, I'm going to use my cheat sheets for these, in probably back to the 1600s, I would assume. Yeah, 1649. This whole area was basically known as Duxborough. Not Duxbury, but Duxborough. And from what I've been studying maps a little bit, Bob might be able to help me on this, is everything was divided into about 6 or 7 areas in the whole state. Duxborough, Dorchester, and we all fell into that until they got to the point where they started splitting things up. And so from Bridgewater, we got North Bridgewater, East Bridgewater, West Bridgewater, Bridgewater. Brockton was even known as the Northwest Parish in the northwest section of Brockton. So if you read maps, you'll get very confusing on what the heck everything was. Next photo. So that's where it started. I didn't really get into too much detail there. That's the same photo I showed you before. Yeah, from Elm Street, so I was right. That's the first parish. And I don't know about the angle, but the second photo is actually the Porter Street Church. How it got on the left-hand side of the road overnight, I don't know, but that's what it is. Give you a reference, Joe Angelo's Cafe would be in that area. City Hall would be off to the right. And that's just a sketch. Next photo. And this is a good one. I definitely need my notes for this one. The city seal, when it was originally drawn up, had 1700 on it. But the first settler in Brockton was, I'm gonna get his name wrong, was, I'll find it. Okay, there it is. Zacchaeus? Does that sound right? Zacchaeus? Zacchaeus Packard. And he was the son of Samuel Packard. And he was the first settler in Brockton. And he came to Brockton in 1697. So the seal says 1700. I didn't do very good in math when I was in school, but I saw something was a little bit wrong there. So I dug into it, and I'm not the only one. But what happened was, when they drew up the seal in 1881, a lot of things happened in 1881. The southern border of Brockton ended somewhere around Brookside Ave, where a little farther south in the Campbell high-rise area, the Bat Terminal's down that way, not the Bat Station, but the Bat Terminal. And then the city annexed that section of West Bridgewater in 1893. So when they drew up the seal in 1881, that's where Brockton ended. When they annexed the rest of that part of West Bridgewater, Samuel Packard and his farm was now part of Brockton. So if you read any of the history books, they'll mention that this one here, the first settler in Brockton was Mr. Packard. But then when you go to the map, you'll see that, well, how the heck did he get there in 1698 and the thing was drawn up? So that's the answer. And Brockton does this to you. They have so many different dates. It's just, I can be staring right at it and not understand it. And but they were on the go back then. Things didn't stay. They didn't like something, they took the building down and put up a factory. No permits. They took it down and that was it. They added on to it. Next photo. Any questions on that or anything else?
Is that the Packard farm on Pearl Street?
No. This one was on Campello. Brockton Country Club. That area. Yeah.
Samuel Avenue.
Yeah, now that brought up a topic of discussion too. Samuel Avenue, I assumed, was named after Samuel Packard. And then a wise guy on Facebook throws in, well, did you know that Samuel Copeland had a house on the end of the road? I don't need that. I need the story to be right the first time. So So I didn't get mad. I said, oh, son of a gun. So to be honest with you, I don't know if it was Samuel Packard, Samuel Copeland. And I'm going to find a map. Hopefully Bob can help me with a map. And whoever I can find was in that area the first, going back, then I'll have my answer. It's a small thing. This is cool. Can you go forward once and then back? I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. Okay. Okay, this is cool. I'm gonna skip. We're gonna stay right here. Yeah. This is a very rare photo. This was recently donated to me. A woman showed up with some old scrapbooks of Brockton that her grandchildren were ready to throw away. And she says, well, everybody in Brockton says, well, if it's no good, bring it to Bill Hogan. He may use it. So I get a lot of stuff. And so they showed up with it. And we were at the library going through it. And I'm opening it. It was a scrapbook at first, just enterprise articles, not too much I hadn't seen. And I got to one of these photos, and they says, you got to be kidding me. Now, I know the history behind this, but I had never seen a photo. I have the original photos. I'm not sure if I brought them here, but I made copies. They're on cloth paper. And these are taken in 1894. And look at that. That's beautiful. And 1894. So the timeline, this tells a whole bunch of stories. I could talk about this photo for a couple hours. The City Hall the cornerstone was laid in 1892, opened in 1893, and the railroad was elevated in 1896. So the timeline is somewhere between 1894 and 1895. Now I spent a good hour and a half researching that, and then I actually decided to turn the photo over. It says 18. So 1894. And so this is looking. This is from City Hall Tower, and I don't even think it's. It could have been a little early. I don't know. But anyway, that lake that's up on the right-hand side. That's Salisbury Lake. Today is Salisbury Park. The Cosgrove Pool is there. The Plouffe Academy is there. All it was a dammed. They dammed up Trout Brook, and it was dammed for Sprague Village, Sprague Village, Factory Village, and the dam. I'm not an engineer, but somehow they build dams. The actual dam is quite a ways away from where the water backs up. The dam would be where somewhere near the East Side Fire Station is today. Grove Street comes together with Summer Street, Crescent Street, and then the water backs up. So the banks of the river, the banks of the pond are still there. At the Union Cemetery is in the top. You can see some of the graves right above it. And let's see if this is the right one. One of the factories is still there. I believe that's the snow factory. Over here on the left. That's still standing. That road down there was Bay Road. Not there anymore. Bay. The Bay. They didn't overthink things too much. And that's gone. It's about where the post office is today, the big post office. Up on the left-hand corner, we can go back one now. This is the baseball part of it. I'll be pretty comfortable with this. Everybody's heard of William Henry Gunner Mcgonigle. He is given credit of inventing the catcher's mitt in 1875. And what he did was he was catching at a game in Harvard, and his hands were hurting. Catchers didn't have a mitt on. Nobody had a mitt on. So here's a guy, a grown man's throwing the ball about 60 feet away. I know it was softer than today's baseball, but he was throwing the ball at the catcher, at the batter, the catcher. They'd hit guys too. When you didn't get first base, you got hit, you get back up, you get hit. And, it actually ended his career later. He got hit. And so he invented the catcher's mitt unofficially in 1875. And so this brings me to the baseball. There's more to it too. Next photo again. The top left-hand corner is O'Donnell's Playground. Does everybody know where O'Donnell's Playground is? Center Street? Yeah. What else is up that way?
Backside of Union Cemetery.
Union Cemetery is across the way. Yeah. Well, anyway, at the time, that was a minor league baseball complex. And it sat 2,600 people. And about 6 minor league teams played there. That was their home field, including of all things, the Quincy Shipyard, Quincy Shipbuilders came to Brockton to play their games. And Gunnar Mcgonigle would have been a manager or a player during that time. Probably 40% of the players that played in that minor league at O'Donnell's Playground went on to play in Major League Baseball. And we'll go over a few of them. So you can go to the next one. Hopefully it's in order. Okay, that's just a little bit of a close-up of it. This is, that's not Court Street, but Court Street is over this way. The entrance is center, over here. Everybody have a little better perspective of it? And just like old-time baseball, people would have came on the trolleys. The place would have been packed. It sat 2,600 people, but they probably got more in the outside, outfield, and everything else. Next photo. This is one of the more successful ball players, borderline Hall of Famer. He was up for the Veterans vote a couple of years ago. He didn't quite get into the Baseball Hall of Fame. This is Jimmy Scheck. He ended up playing with the Chicago Cubs and a couple other teams. But as you can see, he played for the Brockton Shoemakers, and he did very well. He was quite a player. And he was he had a reputation of being like almost like a Ty Cobb player. Ty Cobb would kill you to get to third base. He'd do anything. His spikes flying, no matter what. He tried to get, that's the way he played. And Jimmy would sneak in on the left field, and he'd get like 20 feet behind the shortstop and dare the people to hit it over his head. And of course they did. But he was quite a player. Next photo. This is him in Chicago. He played for the Cubs. I'm just trying to give you some of the more famous people that played there. Next photo. Okay, this is a little bit later, 1912. Thomas Buck O'Brien. Hendrickson got Bryan's the third one in. Bucks is from Brockton. This is 1912 again, so we're going beyond the 1800s. He was the first pitcher ever at Fenway Park in 1912, and they won the game today, and they actually won the World Series that year. And that was that trivia question that took us so long to win the. We used to win like every year back then, and then we didn't win for 80 years. And Buck and one of his teammates, Hendrickson, on the left, would have played at O'Donnell's Playground too. Olaf Hendrickson, Swedish, I believe. And where they're going, I don't know. Reading a little research on the 1912 team, they like to fight. Each other. Buck, being from Brockton, was going to beat up everybody, and he didn't. We won't bring that in. Brian's here. Yeah. That's right. My friend right here. So where they're going, I don't know. I don't think it's Brockton. Must be Boston. Next photo. That's Olaf Hendrickson right there. Next photo. This is a cool photo. Yeah, it is Ty Cobb. Yeah. It has something to do with this here. George Keith is on the right. And he would bring his company in to see the Red Sox. And this would be a little later, I guess, in 1912. And what he did is he's handed in Ty Cobb a certificate. These are copies, because the original is probably worth $100 million, I don't know. But what he did is he gave each player on the Red Sox or Detroit was playing the Red Sox, a certificate for a pair of shoes, from the walkover shoes, for every hit they got. Yeah. Tyrus got 2 that day. The big winner was the speaker, Tris Speaker. Got 4 hits. He got 4 certificates. I have copies of these over there if you want to grab a copy. It's just something to go home with. And the funny part about it was, like I said, Ty Cobb was a rowdy guy. When he went to get his shoes, they didn't have his style. Not good. He was a very rich man too. He was a great businessman. He had all kinds of money, but they didn't have the shoes. So from what I understand, they had to go make a pair of shoes for Tyrus. And I'm repeating they called him Tyrus when they were telling me about the story. So the next photo is probably the certificates themselves. So there was some pretty. Let's see if speakers on there. I wish I knew where these went. Obviously they went to the store, they were redeemed at the store, and off they went, but there's $1 million right there, I'm telling you. Yeah. So there was a lot of Hall of Famers playing that day. I can't think of them all. Okay, next photo. This is a good one too. We're staying with the baseball theme a little bit eventually. This is not John Wayne. I know, I called him John Wayne on Facebook. I thought they were going to kill me. It's Tom Mix. Yeah, and this is at City Hall. Yeah, and this is the Lions Milk Fund. And the Lions Milk Fund was tied into baseball a little bit, and we'll get to that. So go to the next photo, maybe it'll explain a little bit better. What they did back then, this is Eldon B. Keith Field, the Red Sox. There was a news editor by the name of Jimmy Burke, I believe. He organized a trip for all the youth of Brockton to go see the Red Sox. And I'm guessing the trolleys were gone by then, so they would probably take the buses in. And they had a big thing at City Hall. All the buses would be lined up. And back then, I don't remember the 40s, but back then when you went somewhere, you just showed up and got on the bus. And off you went. Lincoln Park, Paragon Park, Fenway Park. Maybe you had one matron on there, somebody's mom, I don't know, but you just got on the bus. So there'd be like 7 or 8 buses of Brockton kids all heading to Fenway Park. So to reciprocate, the Red Sox would visit Eldon B. Keith Field every year and play the Taunton Lumber Company, I call it the Brockton Taunton Lumber Company, in a charity game to benefit the Lions Club, Milk Fund. So some of the, go to the next one, it's a little better. This is Eldon B. Keith. Some of the more recognizable ones, this is Dom DiMaggio, right here, the professor they called him. And I'm pretty sure that's Bobby Dorr. I'm not positive of that. So they didn't, today's days, when the Red Sox would show up, usually you'd get a third string shortstop or a second string shortstop or whatever. But Brockton had such the prestige back then, they all showed up. I have a feeling that Ted Williams was in the war during this time, so I don't think he's in the photo. But I have the lineup card. I actually have a lineup card from one of the years, and he's listed on there with all the first stringers. You might as well be playing the All-Star game. So they did show up, and this is Eldon B. Keith again. Next photo. I don't know how he got in there. This is Ziba Keith. He was the first mayor of Brockton. He was elected in 1881, and he took office in 1882. Mr. Quimby's going to like this one. I like to tease him a little bit back there. I don't know if you've noticed this. This is a photo of Ziba Keith when he was young. I got his attention. He's going, where do you get that? This isn't the original, obviously. Next photo. He shouldn't be in the order, by the way. That don't make any sense. Okay, we're going up to the 1800s. We're leaving baseball a little bit. Thomas Edison had a huge presence in Brockton. The theory is that he did it in Brockton in case it didn't work and he blew up the city, nobody would know. So he did, he came, and you got to say, like again, Brockton was such a progressive town and city back then that they would allow people to come here to Brockton and experiment and do things. You know, the railroad was going in at the time, the electricity was going in, the phones, everything was happening all around the 1800s. So when he said, can I come down here and do that? Come on down. Come on, and he did. Fortunately, it didn't blow up. Next photo. Some of the things he did. This is the way it looks today. This is the power plant on Lincoln Street. Lincoln's here, City Hall would be off to your left here. That's Montello. They did a great job renovating it. The right-hand side is the original building. It's been added on over the years. And when they renovated it, they left the ceilings open. So we're going to be doing a tour sometime in July of that. I just don't have an exact date. And so when you walk in, the rafters are still there. The door, the window rather. I don't know how they got deliveries up there. I don't know why they would get deliveries up there, but the delivery area is up there. Today it's the Old Colony Planning. They own the building. And Metro South Chamber of Commerce is there. Yep. So next photo. This is just the plaque. Brockton's great downtown for tours, by the way. You don't need anything. You don't need a cheat sheet. They've got plaques all around City Hall. You just walk around. They think you're so smart. You go, that's right there, 1883. James Edgar's down there, the Strand Theater Memorial. It's really cool. So that's on the building. Next photo. Okay, this is obviously after 1896 because the railroad is elevated now. So this is, on the left-hand side is the Edison power plant. So this is looking across Montello Street, and this is School Street on the right, excuse me, on the right-hand side. And I'll tell you a little story about what they called the Flying Dude. It was a train, and the people that rode on it were from Boston, and they left Boston on Friday night to head to the Cape for the weekend. And they were so rich that it was an express all the way through Wareham, I believe. And they wouldn't even stop with George Keith. He didn't have enough money. So I don't know who was on that train. But what was nice, when they had to go about 40 miles an hour until they got to the Brockton-Avon line. And then, of course, the line was either elevated or went under the bridges. So it went 100 miles an hour from Brockton to Bridgewater, or wherever they ended it. So imagine sitting there and watching a train going by at 100 miles an hour. We're going to do it on scale. We're going to build a little layout, and we're going to have the go thing. It's going to go right through the wall. It's going to be a one-time trip. 100 miles an hour.
Where was the school on School Street?
Well, the second high school in Brockton was on where City Hall is today.
Okay.
So that's why they called it School Street. And I have a feeling that High Street was named after the high school when it was built on Warren Ave. Yeah. Again, they didn't overthink things too much back then. You know, Birch Street was Birch Street because there was birch trees on it. There isn't any more. That's near my neighborhood. There's some birch trees on Birch Street. So that's just an extra photo. You know, a little bit of history. Next photo. I'm doing pretty good. Some of the things that Edison wired was City Theater. Now this is the city block. The theater was actually behind it. So the entrance, a lot of theaters, you went in the entrance and you went down an aisle and the theater was behind buildings. They really weren't on the front. The marquee was there in the aisle. So a lot of people think that the city theater burnt down. The city block had a fire, the front. The city theater actually didn't burn down. It was torn down in 1954, approximately. And it should have been like a Smithsonian exhibit. That's how historic and beautiful it was. But there's people that think that was when the city lost its soul, when they started tearing down buildings like the city theater. There's no way. Ironically, it's a parking garage today. And the other nice theater in Brockton, they're all nice, but the other one was the Brockton Theater. And that's a parking garage. So. Oh well.
Does anybody park there?
Oh yeah, it's full. They're both full. Next photo. So that's one of the, back to the wiring. He personally wired that, 1884, I believe. City Theater. This is the inside of the City Theater. Yeah. And there's a technical part of the electricity. I don't know if there's any electricians here or not, but the City Theater was the first electrically lighted theater in the country. And the technical part sometimes is it's a 3-wire system. There was 2-wire electricity in other places, but what I know about it is when something went wrong on a 2-wire, it just kept pumping the electricity. So it would start a fire. With a 3-wire, if something went wrong, maybe you touched it with a fork or something, it just shut down. Might be inconvenience, but it didn't blow up. Next photo. That's the inside. And the women are mad about something. There's one guy over here, and he isn't saying anything. So. Yeah, we haven't figured out what this is. The City Theater might have been the first site to hold an indoor high school graduation ceremony also. We haven't proved that. From what I understand, it rained or whatever, and they moved everything to the City Theater. So that's one thing that he did. First off, he had the power plant. I think it was the second or the third centrally located power source in the country. Next photo. We'll see what happens here. The fire station. This is Pleasant Street. That's still there. This was the first electrically powered fire station in the country. Again, from Edison. Electrically powered. Yeah. the alarm went off, and the harnesses came down, the gates opened for the horses at the time. I guess it worked flawlessly until the first fire. And, then the guys were out there. That's moving to. Okay, so that's on Pleasant Street. Everybody know where that is on? Yep. So that's another thing. Let's go to the next one. And that's what would have came out.
It's engine 4.
Yeah.
East side.
Is it east side? Yeah. Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
That's Lincoln Street.
Yeah. So that's coming up. This is Lincoln over here, or is that Lincoln? So this is like near City Hall today. And there's a story about the 3 horses. They died in a shipwreck.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. All 3 of them. Yeah. It was during the war. They were being sent over for the war. And, yeah. Yeah. Ironically, the gentleman on the end, I'm not sure, he was the engineer. Maybe they called him the engineer. And he died at D.W. Field Park. He drowned at D.W. Field Park. Yeah.
What year is this picture? Do we know?
Yeah, I think it says. No, it doesn't. Before.
Pre-World
Yeah.
War I.
So what you're looking at is like School Street and Lincoln Street, City Hall to your right. Okay, next photo. And we'll mention the Edison again, the nice billboard up on the top. My buddy Howard Levitt right over here is a master modeler. So I brought this as a way of showing him that I need a model of that billboard made as soon as you can get to it.
Give me a copy of the plans.
I'll give you the photo. And let me see if I can tell you where that is. Okay, next photo. And Thomas Edison was kind of ruthless as a businessman, putting it mildly. And so when he put his wires out there, he just wrapped them around the trees and went from tree to tree to tree to tree. And the poor pigeons or whoever landed on it or whatever, and you're in for a shock. And so D.W. Field got into it a little bit. And they were friends with Edison, but he insisted that he do something with the wires. So they ended up putting them all underground. And there's so we were the first city in the country to have a 3-wire underground system. And there is also, as everything in history, there's always debates. And we have photos after this that show wires in downtown Brockton. So we've come to the conclusion that they were either telegraph or telephone wires that were eventually, so there were wires. But if you go downtown today, all you will see is light posts, and you won't see any wires on downtown. They're all underground. A few years ago, the manhole covers in downtown were blowing up. And I'm the one that called that in on the phone because the manhole cover in front of my store blew up. And we thought there was a thunderstorm going on at the time, so we thought at first that it was a thunderstorm. And then my buddy, Peter Cataloni, he had parked his car right in front of the store, and he had just had some electrical work. So the second thought was his car was on fire and it blew up. So as we were watching his car and the smoke's coming out, the one that was like right in front of us, 5 feet away, went boom. We go, oh, wait a minute, it's not a thunderstorm. And then they all started going boom, 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 boom. And the reason is, one of the things, there's tunnels all under downtown Brockton. And there's one right in front of the Kennedy building. And if you ever look downtown, there's telephone poles, light poles, and there's trees. But there's none in front of the Kennedy building. When they went to put the tree in, they went right through. There's a tunnel right under there, so the guy went, I hope he didn't fall through. But if you ever go by there, there's no trees in front of the Kennedy building, and that's the reason why. Next photo. In 1886, there was a big flood in Brockton, in February, I believe. And this is also Eldon B. Keith Field. This is looking from where the unowned school is. So you'd be looking towards West Elm Street. Next photo. And here we go, Santa Claus, 1890. We're up to 1890 now. James Edgar was the first department store Santa Claus. That came out in 1890. And that was when he had the Boston store, which was across the street from the Edgars that we remember. That's where he actually did a Santa Claus. Now, he liked to dress up as characters, different characters. Uncle Sam, an Indian chief, all kinds of different things. They called him eccentric. We have a friend of mine that visits downtown, and he's in a different uniform every day. Everybody knows who he is. They call him crazy. He's not crazy. He's a nice guy. He's a great guy. But he was eccentric. He wasn't crazy. So there's no known photo of him as Santa Claus, unfortunately. There is one of Edgar Davis that's circulating out there, and everybody thinks it's him. Next photo. This is Edgar's department store. It's not James Edgar. That's Kenny Tilden, a friend of mine. And,
Santa or the kid?
The kid. And the irony of it is, you lead me in, there's a photo of me with James Edgar, and his father is Caldwell, Mr. Caldwell, the teacher from Brockton High. And I think a few of you know Richard Caldwell, the historian from Brockton. He just passed away a little while ago. So I don't think I typed a photo here. Next photo. So this plaque is on the parking garage where the store used to be. Like I said, the tours downtown are easy. There's plaques everywhere. Next photo. And 1890 was also the first year the electric trolleys were allowed on Main Street. Up until that time, they were horse-drawn. And the first electric trolley line was actually on Crescent Street. It went from Main, corner of Main and Crescent Street. It headed east to Quincy Street, headed north to Center and Court, and headed back to Main Street, but then it reversed. It never actually went on to Main Street till 1890. So that's, this is in front of the Bixby building. Gurney's was on the right-hand side, the Kennedy building, so this is kind of like in front of my store. Marion's tuxedo. This is probably being taken from the front of his store. It wasn't there then. Next photo. And this was this is what was on Main up until that time, the horse-drawn trolleys. And I use this one because the East Stoughton part, East Stoughton is Avon, yeah. And we almost ended up annexing Avon also, except that Brockton had too much on its plate in the 1880s. They were building City Hall. Edison was wiring the town, the railroad was being built and all that stuff. Okay, go to the next one. That's James Edgar on the electric trolley. So he's probably heading to Highland Park, Children's Day. He'd bring all the kids. That's in front. Yeah, there's a store right there, Boston store. Yep. Joe Angelo's building is old. That's right there on the right-hand side. Next photo. Back to Billy Mcgonigle. Also in 1890, he became the first Major League manager to win consecutive pennants in 2 different leagues. He won in the American League and the National League. They called themselves the Brooklyn Bridegrooms because almost the whole team got married in the same year, so they changed the name to the Bridegrooms. They eventually became the Dodgers. They were in Brooklyn and then they moved to LA. To this day, Billy Mcgonigle has the highest winning percentage of any Dodger manager. Now that's excluding the last 5 years, because I don't know how they've been doing the last 5 years. But he had a higher winning percentage than Tommy Lasorda, the famous Dodger manager. Next photo. Also in 1892, a Brockton first, a man named Glover, Amos S. Glover. He was a Civil War veteran. He solved the problem of inland sewage. And this is the pumping station on Meadowbrook Road, I believe. The bridge is still there, or at least the footings. That's the Salisbury River. And people from all over the world came to see the downward filtration system that he built. All it was law of gravity. So this was actually, they pumped the sewage. The sewage came in and they pumped it all the way to Pearl Street, up in the Pearl Street area, and that's where the sewer beds were there. Now it goes the other way around. This is still there. Half the chimney's still there. And now the sewage comes the other way to the south side of the, near Meadow Lane, Sergeant's Way. So now it's flowing this way. It's right up the street here. You wait a little while, it's going to be going right down there. And ends up in the town river. Okay, next photo. This is the laying of the cornerstone back to the City Hall, 1892, I believe. So there's the power plant in the back. So as you can see, everything's going on in Brockton around this time. Next photo. I don't know how James Edgar and Keith got in the wrong place, but I have an autographed photo of James Edgar in that group of photos that the grandchildren were going to throw away. Yeah. Whether it's authentic or not, I don't know. The next photo. So that's City Hall, 1894. Next photo. I'm hoping we get to the, okay, this is the railroad. This is what I really wanted to get to. Mary, we can finish up after this if you like. Where are you? This is from City Hall looking east. Power plant's on your left. And I studied the photo a little bit, and I found that there was a building right in the middle of School Street. See it right there? It's on rollers. So this tells me that they're getting ready for the construction of the railroad. The railroad was constructed and finished by 1896. So there's no sign of the railroad except that they're starting to move buildings. They didn't throw them away. They moved them, or they took them down and took the lumber and rebuilt the building wherever they wanted to. That's Crescent Street over here. This is Mattress Maker today. Right in here. That was the gas company. So you have the gas company and the electric company right here. Like I said, they didn't care. Oh, whoops. If it ever went, the whole city, at least downtown, would have went. Any questions on this one? Because the remnants of Sprague Factory Village is up on the top. You can see a lone chimney. That's what's left of the factory.
This was taken from City Hall.
City Hall, yeah, looking eastbound.
So that's the railroad right away in front of that white?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, see the sidings?
Yeah.
Right there. So when they built the railroad in 1896, our claim to fame is there. We were the first city in the country to eliminate all grade crossings. It was either under a tunnel, a viaduct, or a bridge. I think there was 15 of them total in Brockton, from the Howard Street to probably Meadow Lane at the time. Yeah, Meadow Lane. And so you're either going over it or you're going under it. But back then they just put them. And back to your fire station a little bit. One of the reasons they elevated it was when there was ever a fire on the east side, they couldn't get fire trucks to the east side because of the railroad. When they came in with hundreds of cars, and they would block every street. And off they'd go. And I guess there was a couple too many fires, and they said, well, we got to do something. They ended up building the fire station corner of Lyman and Crescent Street, Station 4, I believe. But still, it was a problem. That was a small fire station. So one of the reasons they did elevate the railroad was safety. It was just too big. Okay, next photo. I think these photos, yeah, a little bit. This is the photographer, whoever took these photos. I have like 30 of these photos. He went from Howard Street all the way down, and he went from one to the other. So I'm not a photographer, but I think I can string the three of them together like in a panoramic. You know, that would be a beautiful thing, you know, like around a building. I'm thinking on City Hall, see if they'll go for it. They asked me about it. So this is looking south. This is Montello Street. Anybody familiar with the health department in Brockton? Corner of Crescent and Montello. That's that empty block right here. The siding where you see those freight cars is still there. And the factory beyond it is still there. So otherwise, that's 1894 again. Next photo. A little close up. The building in the middle is still there, the one with the smokestack. And somewhere, oh, on the right-hand side, top right-hand side is the original St. Patrick's School. Anybody go to St. Patrick's? No. Did you? Yeah. You didn't go to that one, though. No. Yours was where? Where was yours? On Bartlett Street? Bartlett Street, yeah. And that was a big school. Next photo. This is today's Elliott Street rail yards. I don't think this was being taken from City Hall. And so you're looking at...
Is that again now?
Yeah, it does. You're looking at Court Street over here. And that's Trout Brook that's going through the middle. Next photo. This is as it's being constructed. Next photo. This is when it was finished. This is looking from Parker Street back towards Main. Porter Street Church is on the left-hand side. Porter's Pass is the tunnel on the right-hand side. Remember, these photos are going to be thrown away.
Wow, that's incredible.
And there's more. I can't get them out of there, so I leave them in until they secure them. Next photo. Again, same shot, Salisbury Lake in O'Donnell's. Go ahead, next up, sorry. This is City Hall again. We're looking down at the railroad station. This would be Center Street, right here. That's W.B. Mason, that big factory on the right-hand side there. No, I take that back. That's Station Lofts.
Yeah.
Station Lofts. Yep. It was that was the Knight building. Okay, next photo. This is the construction of the railroad. This is Center Street. Dunkin' Donuts would be on your left. Everybody knows what Dunkin' Donuts is. The only one downtown.
It looks
Yeah.
like they already got part of the track.
Yeah,
This is a train.
yeah. The station over here was obsolete, so they probably sold the tickets, but they had to go up to the ramp to get on the train, so the trains were operating. Next photo. This is just the other side. That's the gas company, if you remember the photo. So we're looking northbound. The train station's under construction. Again, that chimney shows up all the time from the Edison building. That's a great landmark. Next photo. This is actually my photo, and I didn't take it, but I own it. And I skunked the Brockton Historical Society. I called them the A-Team. Mr. Benson and Mr. Landerholm and Mr. Wilson, and we lost a few of them people over the years, but I call them the varsity, the eight, the best of the best. They have never seen that photo, so I got them. It's only that big. And so this is looking towards Center Street. It's like a little Kodak thing. I don't know how they. Next photo. And so this is the other side, and again we're looking at the Stallendine building, the station lots, City Hall be over to the left, and that's Lincoln. They call it the Lincoln Street Pedestrian Way. It connects the post office area to City Hall. They built it. They renovated it rather. They sandblasted it, cleaned it out, and locked it up. Next photo. And now we're looking towards City Hall. Here's your ramp up here where they get on the railroad. Let's see another. We were talking about the Unitarian Church earlier. That's the steeple for the original, and it was on East Elm Street. They moved a lot. Yeah. Next photo. Just a different view. You know what's funny is they got this done like in 2 years. And last I knew they were still working on the East Street on-ramp on 128. and I haven't been up there in 12 years.
Is that Center Street there?
Yes. Yeah. Next photo. Yeah, this is looking up at City Hall.
School Street?
Yeah, again, there's that chimney. If you don't remember anything tonight, you'll remember that chimney. Take a right. Yeah, next one.
Those were all dirt roads back then?
Yeah, yeah. Some cobblestones was coming in. There was a lot going on in that time. It was crazy. That's the same photo we had saw earlier. Next photo. Okay, this is what it looks like today. This is technically, this is Crescent Street, I believe. So it's the next one down, but you get the idea. That's what we're looking at today. Danny, our friend Danny took this photo, Robert. Danny took the photo. Yeah, we have yeah, that's Mattress Maker on the right. So in the older photos, that would have been the gas company on the right-hand side. Okay, next photo. This is a cool one. This is 1909. We're going back and forth here. They had the war games here in Brockton. This is before World War I. And so this is the Lawrence Street, Skinner Street area. And I think the balloon's hiding the St. Patrick's School. You can go to the next photo. There it is. Same thing. Let's see. Camp of the Blues at Lawrence Street, Brockton, Mass. And they did this all over the country, not just here in Brockton, but they did it all over the country. The general that was in charge of it became like the bigwig at Sears. Eventually, his name escapes me. Next photo. This is a shot of the camp, and I'm pretty sure that roof in the center is the St. Patrick's School. So we're looking at Lawrence Street. Next photo. This is the Whitman School, which became Brockton High School, which is now where the library is, at 304 Main Street. And behind it is Keith's Pond, which is all it is the Salisbury Brook dammed up. Again, back to the engineering part, which I had no idea how they did it. The dam was actually on the other street of Montello, and the water backed up behind the... yeah. So I don't know how they did that. They never did that in the tub and everything when I was building dams and stuff. But that came down, and like I said, they saved things back then. They took it down, and a guy named Baker bought the lumber and moved all the lumber over to what at the time was Robinson's Court near Salisbury Lake, and rebuilt it into an apartment building. And he bought it for $500, and then he had to move it. Next photo. So this is a little bit later. I was hoping, yeah, you can barely see it. This became Brockton High. This was the third Brockton High School. The first one was on the end of Linden Street in North Main, where Zayres and Coatesfield. Anybody remember Coatesfield? Yeah, California Fruit Company. That's exactly right to the left of that is where the first high school was. The second high school was at School Street. The third one was here. And the annex is actually in the back. You can barely see it. They had to keep adding on. Next photo. It's probably only about 500, I believe. Yeah. This is Jonathan White, the keynote speaker. And this is the laying of the cornerstone for the library in 1912, the library we know today. And White Avenue, right next to it, named after Mr. White. He didn't make it, unfortunately. He died before the library opened in 1913. He was instrumental in getting the high school built, the one on Warren Ave, and the library. And I think, I'm a little debate here. I think it's George Keith here in the middle. But they have George Leach listed on the program and not George Keith. But I don't know. I have the program too. Yeah. Actually, some of the chairs are still in the library. Next photo. And this is Andrew Carnegie. He donated $110,000 to build the library. And they asked for $80,000. They decided it wasn't enough. They sent him another letter, and so we sent $110,000. He was building libraries all over the country. He was big into the library system.
He donated money for the library?
Yeah, he built the original part of the library. Yep. Yep.
Trying to make up for how he made his money.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what you'd call them. The rich people back then, J. Paul Getty, and the Admiral. Who was the Admiral? Vanderbilt. Carnegie, Rockefeller. Yeah. Hershey guy was a good guy right from the beginning. But a lot of them, they weren't so nice. They'd cut your throats. When they got older, all of a sudden they said, oh, all right. And so they sat there just writing checks. And there's rumors that some of them died because they couldn't keep up on writing checks. They'd give away $1 million and make $5. So that's Mr. Carnegie. Next photo. And this is the original part of the library. It wasn't really that big. If anyone's interested, I'm at the library every Wednesday night from 6 to 9. I just give history tours or whatever. A lot of times we just sit there and talk. We don't go anywhere. But I can show you where the original library ended. And the annex is added on to it. So the building that you see today, the real big one, it was nothing like that. That's how I remember as a kid. It was probably maybe twice the size of this building, maybe. It was beautiful. Next photo. That's when it was finished. A lot of the furniture is still there, just rearranged. Next photo. That's the rotunda on the 3rd floor. And next
For
photo.
the DP,
Yeah, WPA.
WPA
Yeah.
artwork.
Yeah. That's the historical room. That's where you usually find me on Wednesdays, by the way. Next photo. We do a lot of events at the library. This is the main circulation area. This is the this is the Rocky Marciano night. That's Todd Petty doing. He was the main speaker. I show up in my dungarees and a T-shirt. It was him and I. He shows up in a suit. So this is Howard is right there. Where'd he go? He's been sitting there all night. He just left. Anyway, a lot of my buddies are in there, and that was quite a night. We had a great time. So we do a lot of events at the library, different events. Mine's a lot of times is sports orientated. Next photo. Tony DeMarco showed up that night. He was the welterweight champion of the world. He was close friends with Rocky Marciano. Next photo. That's Melise, by the way, my friend. Part of the Liberty trees there. I'm not going to go because we're kind of running out of time here, but the Bennett, Edward Bennett. Next photo. That's a close-up Ed Bennett. Edward Bennett owned the stables on High Street that was part of the Underground Railroad. He moved to Brockton from Abington so that he could help more slaves. Next photo. That's his stables there. Next photo. And that's what the library looks like today, upstairs. So it's basically a museum. The front part of the library is becoming a museum. Do you want me to end up? Okay. I mean, we can go on forever. I hope that... that's only 18... What did it do? 1812? 1912. We can talk about Rocky and Marvin Hagler and some of the artifacts. But if you... I'm going to be staying for a little while. You can... we can talk. I can try to answer some questions or whatever. But we have food? I'll let you eat.
Great, thank you.
Yep. There's a lot of history.
It was very entertaining and very informative. Thank you very much.
Welcome.